2015 has seen a lot of great games, but it's also seen quite a few with a lot of potential get cancelled. That's why today gameranx is bringing you the top 10 cancelled games of 2015. Number 10, Final Fantasy Agito Plus. A game that came from the early origins of Final Fantasy Type O, functions as kind of both a prequel and an alternate timeline for Final Fantasy Type O. It contrasted with Type O just a little bit in tone, because Type O was pretty dark, and Agito was apparently quite a bit more lighthearted. Now you could probably get a Japanese version of it for your tablet or smartphone, if you're clever, but unless you know Japanese, a game where you literally have to read a bunch of dialogue is not really ideal. To be frank, I was looking forward to this because I really enjoyed Type O.
Number 9, Unsung Story. Now this one's a little bit more complicated. In 2014, a small company called Playdeck started a Kickstarter which purported to be making a spiritual successor to Final Fantasy Tactics. Now, a ton of people really love Final Fantasy Tactics, myself included, and it was obvious when the game got $660,000 worth of funding. Now, Unsung Story as a title has not been cancelled, but the game that people funded is definitely not happening. What was sold as a story-heavy tactical single-player RPG along the lines of Final Fantasy Tactics has been turned into a player versus player online game. Now the game was originally promised to come out in summer of 2015, and the initial player versus player beta is coming out in June 2016. On top of that, anybody who's asked for a refund has been denied. So a game called Unsung Story is coming out, but it's not the game that people were told they were funding, which is actually kind of worse than a cancellation because the company canceled the experience that people want, which sucks because Final Fantasy Tactics, again, big fan. Number 8, an Untitled Marvel fighting game. Something that was being worked on in EA Chicago was a 3D fighting game that allowed you to play as Marvel heroes. It very obviously had a long way to go, and maybe it was just deemed not a good investment of time and money to continue developing it. Who really knows? But really, EA, if you have the license to make something like this, here's what I want you to do. Look at Power Stone and then put the Marvel characters in a Power Stone style game. And this kind of looks like maybe that's what they were thinking, but I don't know. One way or the other, that's what I want. And I'm sure that you guys would back me up on that. Number 7, Phantom Dust. In 2014, Microsoft announced that they would be rebooting the Phantom Dust game from 2004, which came out on the original Xbox. And they had partnered with Darkside Games in order to make this a reality. Now this was Darkside's first solo project, but for unknown reasons, Microsoft suddenly sort of just pulled the rug out from under on Darkside, and Darkside actually had to shut down. They don't exist anymore. And frankly, a lot of people were actually looking forward to the game a great deal, and the stuff that Darkside had shown was actually pretty cool. And it gives this kind of unstable perception about how this stuff happens. Now Microsoft claims that they're still working on the title, but they haven't said anything about who's doing it, when it's going to be released, and if it's going to be the same game that Darkside was working on. Frankly, I can't really understand how it would be the same game. So with Phantom Dust, are we going to get something that actually makes us feel like the cult classic, or are we not? I don't know. Just to be completely frank, Microsoft really hasn't updated people on the situation for this in quite a while, so who knows. Number 6, a really weird Justice League game. Now this game wasn't cancelled in 2015, but we did learn about it in 2015. This was supposedly going to be a Green Lantern game, and also supposedly going to tie in with a Justice League movie that never happened. And through 2015, a lot of footage actually surfaced from this game. I mean, at times it was kind of cool. The action looked good. I won't dog it for that in any way, because honestly, it looks like something I would play. But it looked like it kind of harkened back to the days of the 90s as far as voice acting goes.
The whole world will be turned into Omax. Pity you won't live to see it. Attack! More! More!
And I don't know whether those were final voices or not, but it looks strange to say the least. Number 5, just like the weird Justice League game we just talked about, this canceled Driver game was not canceled this year, but we did finally learn some about it. The game was going to be called Driver 5, which is a pretty obvious sequel to Driver 4, and was going to take place in San Francisco. Now bear in mind, it was not Driver San Francisco, which is a game that actually came out. The game was actually going to incorporate destructible environments, which is really bizarre for a driver game, and to be honest, that probably would have been pretty cool. In fact, what happened with that? Why aren't games doing more destructible environments? Do you remember Red Faction Guerrilla? Sure, maybe not the best story of all time, but destroying buildings with a hammer was possibly one of my favorite things. If Driver 5 was going to incorporate stuff like that, I would have been all for that. Number 4, Hellraid. Hellraid is a dark fantasy action game that Techland, developer of Dying Light, has actually insisted isn't cancelled. But it's kinda cancelled. When you're a company of a certain size and create something that people really like, it often makes more sense to concentrate on that thing rather than on another thing. Dying Light is that thing, and Hellraid is the other thing. It's not even really on the back burner right now, it's just completely halted. And most of the time people consider that cancelled, but the Dying Light developers don't want people to consider it cancelled. They just want to make sure that the Dying Light players are satisfied as quickly as possible, and they need the resources for that currently. It's kind of up in the air, and until they say something, we just should not really wait for it. Number 3, Ink Quest. The creators of Fable, Lionhead, actually came up with a game described as part magical map, part audiobook, part adventure game, which given Lionhead's propensity to dream as big as possible, probably would have been pretty interesting. And if you had told me that a developer other than Lionhead was making a game that's part magic map, part audiobook, and part adventure game, I don't know that I'd be terribly interested, but just knowing Lionhead, who has certain people there that are bad about running their mouth and over-promising, are an incredibly talented studio that has delivered quality games. I don't know, I probably would have tried it. It's kind of sad that it got cancelled. Number 2, Kaio, King of Pirates. Everyone's favorite guy who seems to come up with really cool things and then find a way to fuck them up, Kaiji Inafune, and his company Concept. It was an interesting concept that was actually based in Romance of the Three Kingdoms, but instead with animal pirates rather than historical figures. It was actually planned as a trilogy and was intended to be a way to make the classic story appeal to the West in the way that Dragon Ball was based on Journey to the West. My theory is that Inafune, as he has done for years now, just bit off more than he can chew. How many friggin' games is this guy working on? And how many of them are not going to happen? And finally, number 1 is Silent Hills. Now, I could stop there and not say a damn thing. You know exactly why every single person on the planet is upset by this. A collaboration between one of the greatest minds in gaming, one of the greatest minds in film, and frankly a pretty darn good actor, set in the Silent Hill universe, which is frankly one of the creepiest game universes of all time, and in desperate need of a veteran visionary to bring it back to a place where it's at its best. The game was announced as cancelled earlier in the year, basically at the start of Konami's implosion. People were like, what? Then they removed Hideo Kojima's name from Metal Gear Solid 5 The Phantom Pain's packaging, and the long downward spiral just continued on from there. At this point, nobody is shocked when Konami says or does something stupid. They literally recently claimed that Hideo Kojima was on vacation. Yeah, and that puppy you had to get rid of is at a farm upstate. I mean, really, this is probably our biggest loss to canceled games in 2015, hands down. Don't tell me PT wasn't a masterpiece. Ugh, I'm not gonna lie, this one was a bit taxing because a lot of what could have been has run through my head, particularly on the Final Fantasy-oriented titles and Silent Hills. What do you really wish was actually happening? Leave a comment and tell us. Also, don't forget to click the like button. It helps us a ton. And also, if you're not subscribed, make sure you do that because we upload new videos every single day of the week, and the best way to see them first is a subscription to our channel. As always, we thank you so much for watching this video, and we will see you next time right here at gameranx.